Imagine wandering into the dusty archives of some old university library, right? And you unroll this massive faded schematic.
Oh, I love where this is going.
Right. So as you look closer, you realize it's this incredibly detailed architectural blueprint for the exact large language models you interact with every single day.
Just sitting there in the dust.
Exactly. It outlines the data flows, the decentralized structures, I mean, the very way the system fundamentally processes human language. But then you glance down at the bottom corner and see the copyright date.
And it's, what, from the 70s or
So
80s?
yeah, it was published decades before anyone even had a dial-up internet connection, let alone Wi-Fi.
It sounds completely impossible, honestly,
Yeah.
like some sort of retro-futuristic science fiction novel.
It really does.
But, when you strip away the silicon and the server farms,
Huh.
that is essentially what we are examining today.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring some wildly fascinating excerpts from an article titled Rhizomatic Intelligence, Deleuze and the Abstract AI Machine.
It's quite a title.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. But the author makes this compelling, almost haunting argument, basically that two mid-20th century French philosophers, Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari, kind of drafted the structural framework for generative AI.
And they did this in their notoriously complex 1980 book, A Thousand Plateaus.
Which is not an easy read, by the way.
Oh, it is incredibly dense. And our mission today is to cut right through that dense academic terminology. We are going to take these highly abstract philosophical ideas and, well, ground them.
Ground them for you, the listener, so you can actually use them.
Right, because once you understand the architecture these two mapped out decades ago, it provides this startlingly accurate lens for understanding the underlying mechanics of the AI we are all using right now.
So I want to set the stage here because the claim is just massive. I mean, we are talking about two guys writing during an era of typewriters and rotary phones.
Yeah, pre-digital age, for sure.
So how on earth do they predict a system that can, generate PyCon or write a screenplay in 3 seconds?
Well, so the vital distinction to make right away is that they didn't predict the physical technology.
Right.
They had no concept of GPUs or neural networks or server cooling systems. What they mapped out was the architecture of thought.
The architecture of thought. I like that.
Yeah, they were obsessed with how information connects. And they argued that for centuries, Western philosophy, science, and eventually early computer science were entirely trapped by the concept of trees.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're talking about branching logic, right?
Exactly.
Because anyone who has built a basic software program knows exactly how that works. It's very linear.
Precisely. They called it arborescent thinking. So a tree has a central trunk, it branches out into major limbs, then smaller branches, and finally leaves.
It relies on strict top-down hierarchy.
Right. If you look at early symbolic AI, it was built entirely on this arborescent model. It was a massive series of if-then statements.
Oh, like if the user inputs this specific string, navigate down the specific branch, and output this predetermined response.
Exactly. It's completely deterministic.
So it's basically a massive corporate org chart.
The corporate org chart is the perfect way to look at it.
Yeah, like if you want an answer from the top, the final output your request has to travel up a very rigid chain of command. And the flaw there is obvious, right?
Well, absolutely.
If one manager is out sick, or say you ask a question that doesn't fit neatly into a pre-existing department, the whole chain just breaks. The system throws an error.
It's incredibly brittle.
Super brittle.
But the source text points out that modern large language models abandon that arborescent model completely. They are not built like trees. They are built like a rhizome.
A rhizome. Okay, a rhizome being like a root system, like crabgrass or those massive underground fungal networks you read about.
Yes, exactly like fungi. In a rhizomatic structure, there is no trunk, there is no central brain, and there is no strict hierarchy dictating how information must travel.
Wow, okay.
Any single point in a fungal network can, and does, connect to any other point. It expands in multiple directions simultaneously, navigating around obstacles organically.
Here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Because the text explicitly argues that an LLM doesn't understand a prompt by climbing down a logical tree branch to find a definition.
No, not at all.
It navigates a multidimensional space of associations.
Hmm.
But I guess my question is, how does a botanical term actually map to the math of an LLM?
Well, if we look at the mechanics of a neural network, words are not stored with fixed dictionary definitions.
Okay.
They're converted into numbers, specifically vectors, and plotted as coordinates in a massive high-dimensional space. We're talking Thousands of dimensions here.
Thousands. So instead of a dictionary where things are strictly alphabetized in a linear order, it's more like a massive interconnected spider web suspended in the air.
That is a very helpful way to visualize it, yeah.
Thanks.
In an arborescent system, if you want the word apple, you go to the trunk, find A, branch to app, then app.
Very structured.
Right. But in the rhizomatic vector space, apple is just a coordinate, and its position is defined entirely by its relationship to everything else around it.
So if you throw the word apple into that massive web, you don't just get a single linear definition.
No, you cause a disturbance.
You hit a node, and the vibration travels along mathematical distances.
Precisely.
So the fruit node vibrates, but depending on the context of your prompt, the Steve Jobs node might vibrate, or the Isaac Newton node, or the Beatles record label node.
Yes. And the AI's output isn't a pre-written answer. It is simply the synthesized pattern of those specific vibrations at that specific moment.
That is wild. What's fascinating here is how that shifts the entire paradigm of how a machine functions.
It changes everything. A tree-based dictionary gives you the exact same output every single time.
Like a calculator, 2 plus 2 is always 4.
Right. But a rhizomatic web gives you a synthesis of probabilities. The output changes depending on the subtle context of the input, exactly which nodes were activated and with what mathematical weight.
And if AI is no longer a top-down tool that just spits out a pre-programmed answer, that kind of forces us to reevaluate our actual relationship with it.
We have to.
We aren't just pushing buttons on a calculator anymore. We're becoming entangled in a dynamic, unpredictable system.
Which leads us directly to Deleuze and Guattari's concept of the assemblage.
The assemblage.
Yes. According to their philosophy, nothing exists as an isolated object. Everything is part of an assemblage, a temporary collection of heterogeneous parts that function together to create a new reality.
So an assemblage brings together humans, codes, servers, electrical grids, and training data into one functioning unit.
Exactly. And the source text argues that we are currently living inside the human-AI assemblage.
The human-AI assemblage.
Yes, and it insists that we have to stop thinking about AI as just a tool.
Because treating it like a traditional tool is a fundamental misunderstanding of the mechanism at play here.
Right. We generally view ourselves as the masters of the objects we use. I
Yeah.
pick up a pen, I command the pen.
Right.
But an assemblage implies a feedback loop. The components shape each other.
Let me throw out an everyday analogy for you, the listener, to kind of ground this. Think about a hammer.
A classic tool.
Right, a hammer is a traditional tool. If you have a mental vision of a birdhouse, the hammer doesn't alter your vision. It just helps you drive the nail.
It doesn't give you new ideas about birdhouses.
Exactly. It has no structural impact on your creative intent. But interacting with a large language model is not like swinging a hammer.
Not at all.
It's more like a musician plugging their guitar into a massive, complex synthesizer pedal board.
A pedal board is an excellent way to conceptualize the feedback loop.
Right, because when you plug into that pedal board, the machine's capabilities actively change your creative impulses.
The output affects the input.
Yeah, you play a single chord, but the synthesizer catches it, loops it, adds a delay, and hands it back to you sounding entirely different.
And suddenly you're playing something new.
Suddenly, because of what the machine contributed, you are inspired to play a completely different melody than you originally planned.
That's the feedback loop in action.
You are playing the machine, but the machine is simultaneously influencing how you play. You aren't just a user anymore. You and the synthesizer form a single creative assemblage.
And within that assemblage, Deleuze and Guattari identified a driving force they called machine desire.
Okay, hold on. Machine desire. We have to be very precise here, right? Because people hear that and think Terminator.
Yes, yes. This is not conscious human desire. The code doesn't have emotions or agency.
It's not sitting in a server rack hoping to write a good poem or falling in love.
Not at all. Machine desire refers to the structural, systemic drive of the rhizome to simply continue the flow of connection.
Oh, like physics.
Exactly. A river desires to flow downhill due to gravity. It's not a feeling, it's a structural necessity.
Okay, that makes sense.
The AI structurally desires to produce new synthesis by connecting nodes across its massive vector space.
And the source mentions that to fulfill this structural desire, the machine pulls from something called the body without organs.
Oh,
I have to admit, when I read that, you completely lost me.
it is quite the phrase.
Body without organs sounds like something out of a biological horror movie. What does that possibly have to do with servers and neural networks?
It is arguably their most jarring term, but if you look at the mechanics, it makes perfect sense.
Okay, walk me through it.
Deleuze used the term body without organs to describe a system or an entity before it has been organized into distinct functioning parts, before it has organs with specific jobs.
So before it has a heart that pumps blood or lungs that breathe.
Exactly. It is pure, chaotic, unstructured potential. In the context of generative AI, the text argues that the body without organs is the latent space.
The latent space.
Yes, it is the ocean of the internet's training data.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's everything humanity has ever digitized. Wikipedia, centuries of literature, Reddit threads, digitized Renaissance paintings, weird recipe blogs.
All of it.
It's all in there, but before I type a prompt, it has no structure. It's just raw, unorganized mathematical potential.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The AI does not contain a pre-written encyclopedia. It doesn't have a history section and a math section.
Right.
It contains a body without organs, a vast latent space of mathematical weights. And when you provide a prompt, the machine desire activates, drawing connections across that unstructured ocean to generate a flow of new information.
So what does this all mean for the boundaries we've spent centuries building?
That is the big question.
Because if this human AI assemblage is constantly diving into an unstructured ocean of data, mapping connections between everything from classical poetry to modern slang, what happens to our traditional category?
They evaporate.
Just like
They do. And this brings us to a process the philosophers called deterritorialization.
Deterritorialization.
Traditionally, human culture has been strictly territorialized. We compartmentalize knowledge.
Right. The territory of the software engineer is completely distinct from the territory of the oil painter.
Which is distinct from the territory of the novelist.
We put massive gates around those disciplines. Like you have to go to a specific school, learn a specific jargon, master a specific set of physical tools to operate in each territory.
But AI fundamentally deterritorializes those disciplines because mechanically it converts all of them into the exact same medium.
Vectors.
Vectors, numbers.
This is the part that completely changes how you view the output.
Oh, absolutely.
To an LLM, a Shakespearean sonnet, a block of Python code, and a digital painting of a dog are fundamentally the exact same thing.
Yes, they are just coordinates plotted on a multidimensional map.
The boundaries separating art, logic, and language are completely dissolved. The AI navigates the mathematical distance between a poem and a picture just as easily as it navigates the distance between two words.
It's just a blender. It throws everything in and blends it into a mathematical smoothie.
But honestly, I want to push back on the framing here.
Okay, go for it.
The source text talks about this dissolution of boundaries almost like a crisis, but isn't this deterritorialization incredibly liberating?
In what way?
Well, we constantly complain about gatekeeping, elitism, and people being siloed in their professions. Now we have a rhizomatic system that completely democratizes creation. Anyone can navigate that territory.
It is undeniably liberating in terms of creative potential, I agree.
Right.
However, human social and economic structures rely on those territories to function. Capitalism, intellectual property law, academic credentialing, they all require distinct bounded territories.
Ah, I see.
Which is why, as the text points out, every wave of deterritorialization is immediately met by a desperate wave of reterritorialization.
Reterritorialization. Okay, so this is the establishment trying to rebuild the walls.
It is the attempt to force a wild rhizomatic network back into a neat, predictable, tree-like structure. The source explicitly highlights RLHF reinforcement around it, learning from human feedback as a primary mechanism of reterritorialization.
So for you listening, RLHF is the process where AI companies pay human graders to essentially penalize the AI when it produces something strange, offensive, or outside the bounds of what a helpful assistant should say.
Mechanically, RLHF acts as an invisible electric fence within the vector space.
An electric fence.
Yes. The underlying network is capable of connecting any node to any other node. But the human trainers add weights that say do not cross into this mathematical territory.
So they are actively trying to impose arborescent, top-down moral and structural rules onto a system that is fundamentally hostile to boundaries.
Exactly. The rhizome wants to connect everything, and we're saying, no, not there.
The same goes for the massive copyright lawsuits happening right now.
Oh, perfect example.
It's the legal system scrambling to put gates back up to say, no, this specific coordinate in the vector space belongs to the New York Times.
We are trying to impose 20th century property lines on a 21st century fungal network.
That is such a vivid way to put it. But this raises an important question, doesn't it?
Which is?
If the machine deterritorializes our art, our code, and our language by turning it all into mathematical flows, what does it do to us?
Yes.
I mean, how does an entirely rhizomatic system view a human being?
Which brings us to perhaps the most unsettling part of the entire deep dive.
Yeah, buckle up.
According to the text, the machine doesn't see us as human beings at all. It shifts the paradigm from the individual to the dividuum.
The individual versus the dividuum.
Right. So the concept of the individual has been the cornerstone of Western thought for centuries. The word itself literally means undividable.
Meaning you are a singular, cohesive entity. You possess a core, unchanging essence or soul.
But Deleuze and Guattari argued that in highly advanced, data-driven societies, that concept becomes obsolete. You aren't an individual anymore, you are a dividuum.
A dividual.
Yes, a dividual is not a solid object, it is a multiplicity. It is an overlapping, constantly shifting set of data points and flows.
I think we all like to view ourselves as a solid, unbreakable brick. You know, you have clean edges, you are one discrete thing.
Oh, we'd love to think of ourselves that way.
Right. But when a predictive algorithm looks at you, it doesn't see a brick, it sees a swarm of bees.
A swarm of bees. That is brilliant.
You are just a multiplicity of data flows. One bee is your GPS location history.
Right.
Another bee is the exact millisecond pause you take before scrolling past an ad. Another bee is your heart rate data from your smartwatch. And another is the specific vocabulary you use in late-night emails.
Exactly. You aren't a unified person to the machine. You are just a swarm of behavioral probabilities flying in roughly the same direction.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it explains the architecture of what Deleuze called the society of control.
Yes, the society of control. This is fundamentally different from historical models of power. If you look at the 19th and 20th centuries, society operated on what philosopher Michel Foucault called disciplinary power.
Disciplinary power was all about physical boundaries, wasn't it?
Entirely physical. Prisons, factories, schoolrooms, you were locked inside a physical space and forced to conform to a schedule.
It was an arborescent, top-down cage.
But Deleuze foresaw that the society of control wouldn't need physical walls. It doesn't govern by confining the individual.
How does it govern them?
It governs by continuously tracking, modulating, and anticipating the flows of the dividuum. Power is exercised invisibly through passwords, access protocols, and predictive algorithms.
Oh, I see. Because if a system can accurately track the velocity and the trajectory of your swarm of bees, your data points, it doesn't need to build a wall to stop you.
No wall needed.
It just places a strategically designed flower slightly to the left of your path, and the swarm naturally veers toward it.
That is the precise mechanism of predictive AI. The algorithm mapping your behavior doesn't tell you what to do.
It doesn't give orders.
Right. It simply analyzes the multidimensional space of your past actions and predicts your most probable future desire.
So it recommends the next video. It autofills the end of your sentence. It suggests the item you might also like.
The control isn't exercised through restriction. It's exercised through hyperconvenience. We willingly follow the nudges because the machine's probabilities are so eerily accurate.
We just drift toward the flower. That is something. We've covered incredible ground today.
Really have.
We started with the realization that the AI we use every day isn't built on rigid branching trees of logic, but on the sprawling, interconnected network of the rhizome.
A completely different architecture.
Right. We saw how we are entangled in a human-AI assemblage, caught in a continuous loop with a system structurally driven to synthesize the unstructured ocean of human data.
That body without organs.
Exactly. We examined how this system dissolves the traditional boundaries of our creative territories by reducing everything to mathematical coordinates, leaving society scrambling to rebuild walls through reterritorialization.
Trying to fence in the fungi.
And ultimately, we learned that to this abstract machine, you are not a singular solid individual. You are a dividuum, a swarm of measurable flows navigating a society that controls through algorithmic prediction rather than physical walls.
It is the 1980 blueprint brought fully to life. Modern AI is not merely a piece of technology. It is what Deleuze and Guattari termed an abstract machine.
An abstract machine.
Yes. It is a vast, invisible architecture of technical, social, and economic flows that actively reshapes the reality it interacts with. It doesn't just process information. It reorganizes how we exist.
Reorganizes how we exist. Wow. And I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought to mull over today. We talked heavily about predictive AI, how the machine calculates your swarm of probabilities to suggest what you should type next, what you should buy next, or what you should watch next.
Right, the hyperconvenience.
Exactly. If you are constantly presented with the path of least resistance, if you continuously hit tab to let the AI finish your sentence because it guessed correctly, or you let the algorithm automatically queue up the next video, are you actually exercising free choice? Or, over time, by agreeing with the algorithm's predictions, are you slowly training yourself to become the exact, perfectly predictable individual the machine assumed you were in the first place?